Hello guys, David here, and welcome to the first episode of Film Grammar. This week I'm going to be taking a look at the word conceit and its relation to film. Now, if you've seen my video critiquing critics, that's the third episode concerning Nostalgia Critics' reaction to James the Giant Peach, then you'd be aware that I've used the word and I went into little detail about its meaning, its relation to film. If you haven't seen that episode, if you want to, definitely take a look at it. And to those who have seen it, it's going to be going to take a look at the word, and we're going to expand it even further to its relation to other films. So I guess you could say refreshment course, but well, let's go from there, shall we? Now, my definition of conceit, the one that I used in that video, was this: a conceit is an artistic effect or device. Now, how that is used towards film is that, let's say that you're in the theaters or you're at home and you're watching a movie, and the filmmaker uses a very stylistic technique to convey like the characters, the development of the characters, like the plot, just the mood of the film. And it can be, done like, several different ways. So I'll use like some examples here. Now, probably the most common example of like a conceit in a film is a flashback. And that is, we as human beings, we can remember things like, oh, I remember that day that I went to the baseball park. And I caught that home run from Albert Pujols, right? That you remember something like that. But in a film, when a flashback occurs, we as the audience we will see that. Now that doesn't happen in real life. When we have flashbacks, nobody around us sees us. That's a conceit. One example, of course, is in Casablanca. This is, Best Picture winner for 1940, representing the year 1943, I believe. And in it, that we see examples of flashbacks of Rick, that's Humphrey Bogart's character, remembering his romance with Ilsa, played by Ingrid Bergman. That's when we see, as time goes by, like the importance of that song to their lives. We see Rick saying that the famous, catchphrase, "Here's looking at you, kid." We see that effect that Ilsa had on Rick, and how she ultimately, she broke his heart, and it's just, just getting that romance off the story. And that is something that's a conceit there, that, like I said, we don't see flashbacks in real life. I don't see, my friend Emmer, when Emmer recalls an event, I don't see that flashback. He has to end up describing it to me. So instead of the film describing it, he'll show it. The filmmaker, he or she will show it to you. So that's one example for Casablanca. Another one is there's another classic film, and that is, Wizard of Oz, released in 1939. Now, the conceit in this film is that it's the difference between Kansas and the land of Oz, and that is, in Kansas, now most people say that when you go to Kansas it's black and white. Well, no, not necessarily. It's more of a sepia tone, like a little pale version of like red. But I can understand them saying black and white, because when Dorothy goes to Oz, it's bright color. Everything, like the greens and the yellows, the reds and the oranges, the blues, like everything is just gorgeous. So that's what the conceit is that the filmmaker is trying to get across there, that this is Kansas and that is Oz, to show the difference between them. That's what the filmmaker is trying to get across. It's a little stylistic technique there. Now we're going to jump ahead big time to this one, Finding Nemo. This was released in 2003, won Best Animated Feature at the Academy Awards. Now, the conceit... Now, here's the thing. In animation, I mentioned in the previous video that animation can get away with tons of conceits, because with animation, that you make your characters more, fluid, that they can... And, of course, your use of colors, that, of course, you don't normally... Of course, see that people wearing that type of colors. like The Simpsons is another conceit, and that is they're yellow. They're not, like shade of pink or white, if you want to go there. It's yellow, the normal skin color here. And the conceit in this film is that, well, most like almost every other animated film, is that animals talk. And in particular, in this world, the fishes talk to one another. The sea life talks to one another, but they don't talk to humans. Now, I know that you can nitpick and go, well, why is it that the animal, why do they talk to each other, but the humans can't understand that? And that's a conceit that the filmmaker is trying to get across to you, that you don't have to end up questioning that, and that in this world, every animal life can understand one another, but humans can't. So that's one way that it gets across through there. And animation can be done through several different ways. That if like something, a stylistic approach that shows how happy the character is or how sad the character is. I mean, animation above all else can get away with that. Because you know about the typical statement in a trailer where it goes, in a world where, in this case, this is in a world where anything can happen. Animation can get away with that. Now, I want to talk about German Expressionism in relation to Conceit, and in particular, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, one of the classic films of, silent cinema. And that is, in this film, it has exaggerated set designs, makeup, costume design. This is the beginning, and of course, the lighting, the cinematography. This is the beginning of German Expressionism. With this film, you've also got, like, Murnau's films, like Nosferatu, The Last Laugh. And in those, it's a very stylistic approach to show that through this madman story that he's telling, that of course it's insane and everything is bizarre, that it makes sense. That's the conceit that the filmmakers is trying to have with you, that everything is just unusual and is showing it through the visuals. You're either going to buy it or you don't. One filmmaker who is still going on with German Expressionism is, Tim Burton. I use Edward Scissorhands here because I'm deep in mind of the fact that, Césaire in this film reminds me of Edward Scissorhands and the design of the inventor's castle. The art direction reminds me of the exaggerated art direction here. I mean, you can definitely see the influence of German Expressionism on Tim Burton's films, like in, Sweeney Todd, Nightmare Before Christmas. Batman Returns is a very good example because Dr. Caligari looks very similar like his design of the Penguin. So once again, it's a conceit that both filmmakers are trying to get across, that everything is exaggerated in these worlds. And when we come to exaggeration, I mean, I have to mention Federico Felliniism, and that is an 8.5, that in his, especially like the later films that are just so bizarre, but that's a conceit that Fellini is trying to get across to you as the audience, that you're going to try to buy, like, is this a dream? Is this not a dream? Is this what the relationship that the characters are having? Like, what is happening? I mean, what is their emotional their state of mind? Are they upset? Are they happy? It's represented. I mean, and in particular, how the main character juggles his mistresses, his girlfriends, wives, all that. There's a scene where he rounds them up and whips them. And I'm not trying to sound misogynistic there, but that's what happens. It's this everything happening on him. That's the conceit that Fellini is trying to get across there. Now, another example of like a genre of films that's made for the conceit is the musical, and that is, honestly, nobody stops in the middle of what they're doing. Like right now, I'm not going to stop and start singing and dancing, and then everybody's going to join in and the music, and you hear that. That's a conceit that the filmmaker is trying to get across, that in these worlds, in the worlds of Moulin Rouge and in Chicago, especially in Moulin Rouge, and that is, they just stop and they sing. That's the conceit. And of course, the other one in Moulin Rouge is it uses songs that weren't around that time period of Paris. This was, like, I believe, in the early 1900s. So they have songs like from Nirvana, Paul McCartney, I think, songs from David Bowie. I mean, there they are, right there in this movie. That's the conceit, that it's about love, and it's trying to get across that through these songs, and just how the characters ultimately feel, that the filmmaker's hopefully trying to not make you question why those songs are there. And in Chicago, there's a big conceit in this one, and that is the film at the beginning goes and pushes in on the main character, that's Renee Zellweger, Roxy Hart's character, on her eye. So it's implying that all the musical numbers, for the most part, are in her head. So when she sees matron Mama Morton in the real life, in her mind, that's how she is when she's singing When You're Good to Mama. That's how she sees her husband, Amos, as Mr. Cellophane. That's how she sees, Thelma and Billy. That's it. That's a conceit in that film. And I mentioned this one. I'm going to mention it again because, my friend there, I think his name's Retard Retro Guy. Yeah, here you go again. Run, Lola, Run. This is a perfect example of conceit in film. This is a story about a woman trying to save her boyfriend's life. And in it, the story is told, I think, 3 times. of all like different endings and how the director, I think it's pronounced Tom Tykwer, I believe. Tykwer, I think. Excuse me for mispronouncing his last name there. He uses different, styles of filmmaking to get that across, like animation, different film stocks, just to show the pressure on it that she wants to save her boyfriend's life. And just that whole idea, that conceit there, that 3 ways of that happening, of like different results. It's one of those where it's quite a brilliant film. I definitely recommend. In fact, check out all the films if you can, if you haven't. So that is the ending of the first episode of Film Grammar for Conceit, that I hope that you're able to understand conceit in its relation to film and realize that you don't necessarily have to nitpick a film like that when it comes to like stylistic techniques. I mean, true, it's not going to work for everybody, but just think about that in regards to certain filmmakers, that what they're trying to get across. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and have a nice day.